Hey guys, it's time for sketch number, I believe this is number 12. We're going to do something different for this sketch. Instead of doing a still life object or a person, we're actually going to do an optical illusion. So this is the one I had done as an example. So this is actually plain white sketch paper. So we're going to make it look like notebook paper, and we're going to draw this sort of, three-dimensional cavern gorge in the middle. So hopefully it's a little more fun because you're not trying to draw something that's very specific or perfectly shaped. So you'll need, your sketchbook. We're going to start off just drawing with a pencil, and then eventually when we get to the shading and coloring, I used a black colored pencil. They're kind of hard to find, so you might have to dig around or ask me to find one. You can also use black crayon. You could use a hard charcoal pencil. It really doesn't matter as long as it's a really dark something to shade with. It could even be like a dark brown or a super dark blue. And then we use red and blue colored pencils eventually, but that's kind of the last finishing touch. So to start this, I already have some dots on the paper because whenever we're drawing in a regular shape, it's really, really easy to kind of get off course and lose track, and something gets too big or too small or goes off the edge. So we're going to make a series of dots just to guide us. Your shape does not have to be exactly the same as mine. They should all be a little different, but this will at least keep it so it's a good size. So you can see where I started here in the top third of your page, so not really super close to the edge, but definitely not halfway down. So somewhere in that top third, you're doing two dots that are about the same height. Again, this can vary a little bit. And then I just move down and over, not super close to the edge, but into this right quarter. I have two dots, and then they can be in a line, or you can move over a little bit, and then you're actually going to add a third. I'm making my dots really big so the camera picks them up easily. Yours should be just big enough so you can see. Okay, so there's three, and then I'm going to move down and over a little bit and make a fourth. Okay, now I want to kind of go diagonally up, and again, I don't want to go too close to the edge. Make another dot here, kind of going straight up for another one. I'm going to do another one here, really close, because we do want things to be somewhat irregular. Jumping up again, and over. So for the most part, it's sort of like a long rectangle, and I'm just sort of zigzagging a little bit. And again, don't worry about yours being exactly like mine. This will just help us keep on track so that when we're doing all of our cracks and ins and outs, we're not totally losing track of how far we're going. Okay, so now when you connect these, no pressure on keeping things perfectly straight. You don't want to be like super wavy and loose because, its cracks are usually sort of hard edge, but, you're just going to kind of go up and down, zigzagging a little bit. Okay, with this one, I'm going diagonally down into the left first, and then I'm veering to the right. And again, I can do some zigzags kind of up and down. Okay, now we want these to be cracks coming in and out. So we're going to go, in, and I'm going to do a few little zigzags, and then over, and then I'm this one again. We're going in, and we want to be irregular, so I'm going out further than I did last time. A couple of zigzags over. Okay, same thing, in. Kind of look at where your next dot is so you kind of have a good idea of how the angle to keep it going in and out at a decent rate. Okay, now we're, again, semi-straight, but can be irregular to your next one. And then we're going the same thing in and over to our other ones. No specific path or anything. You just don't want to cut in too much or make it too complicated. So don't do a million zigzags, but just keep it sharp and bumpy. Okay. All right, so that's the basic shape of our little cavern here. The next step I did is I sort of took from those dots and I just sort of extended a line. So this is more of just a crack. So here's the hole, and then these are the cracks that they sort of extend out from. Again, no perfect shapes needed. We're just sort of extending out. So it's not like a clean cut hole in the ground. Some can go further. Okay. Okay. So if your dots are huge like mine, you might want to erase them so they're not as visible. But again, I kept mine in there so you can see them. Okay, so now what we're going to do, and I'm going to show you the finished one so you can see. We want to see like the back walls from this gorge here. So we're just going to, one at a time, go from the outermost parts of this, and you're just going to draw straight lines down. So try not to be at an angle. Try to go straight. Use the edge of the paper as a guide. And then once you get one inner edge, pick a couple spots. I like to pick where my angles change, and you're going to do a few more of those straight lines down. Doesn't really matter so much where you put them, but I figure those angles are good opportunities. And so you're just going to go through those one by one. Draw your straight lines down. Okay, you can add some where there aren't angles if you want. But like I said, it's just a nice, easy way for me to keep track. The more lines you add, the more blending you're going to have to do, because I'll point this out again. Anytime you have a line, it turns into a black to white fade. So if you want to do more of that, add more lines. You want less of that, add less lines. But it is easier if you just start with the outermost pieces and then do a few working your way in. Okay, even like this little guy would have one. Okay, and now when you get to the top, these ones would eventually fade into darkness, so you just want to get some started, and then you can kind of just stop. And once you get close to there, they can all just connect to the bottom. Again, keep them as straight as possible. Okay. If it's easier for you to start at the bottom and work your way up again, for some reason it makes more sense to me to do that, so I'm just going to jump to the bottom and start working my way in. So any of those outer points should have one, and then a few of the inner ones. Okay. Now this obviously goes down inside, so you wouldn't see one there. Okay, so once you have those in, we're doing good. Okay, so now we're going to work from the outside of this hole in. So I start on the right side, that's just what I do, but you can start on the left as long as you're starting from super dark. So you can take your black crayon or colored pencil. Okay, start off super dark, and as you work your way towards your first line, you want to fade up to a light gray or a white. So just see how much distance you have and just slowly start applying less pressure. You can always go over it and make it darker if you make it too light, but you're just fading from dark to light, and then once you hit that line, you're starting dark again, dark to light. Okay. Once you hit the line, dark to light again. So not so bad. Just a gradual fade in value. Try to keep it, somewhat consistent, but this is, if it's a rock wall or floor here, it would be uneven anyway, so you don't have to worry about perfectly even blending, but you do want it to fade nicely so you can see the transition. Once you get to the middle, you're kind of fading from dark to light up, and then you're also having to watch the direction here, so I think it's easier to do all of these intersections first, and then we do the middle at the end. So again, start dark in the corner. See where your first line is so you know how fast you need to fade. If anything, make it too light. You can always make it darker, but if you're working with colored pencil, you're not going to be able to really erase it. And if you're working with charcoal, just be careful you don't smudge out of control, though you could use the blendiness of it to your advantage. And you can sort of see it starting to happen already. They don't have to fade to like a pure white. I'm actually keeping my edges like a gray. But if you do make it white, if it looks good, keep it. And if it doesn't look good, then just go over and darken it just a little bit at the edges until it looks right to you. No one should look exactly the same as we're going through this. Okay. Okay, do your best not to go outside the line so that we can keep this nice and clean. But if you do outside the lines, we could turn that into another crack or something. So this project should be pretty forgiving because you don't need perfect shapes. And we can probably turn any mistakes into something that works with this concept. Okay, so what I'm doing here is this one, we're starting to get these long strokes now. So, did I have a line there? As I'm filling this in, as I get further down, I'm just adding a little darker of a value just so I can keep that separate. But if you want, just do like the upper portion for now, just so you can keep your lines established, and then we can darken after, which I always think is safer. If you're not sure about how dark something should get, then just wait on it and do it later. And I actually like to just jump and do the other side first. Just like when we drew it, I think it's easier to think your way through it if you do these edges first. So same thing, you're just working from the other direction. Okay. Once you get past a line, and you just darken. Sometimes you got to fade real quick, like right there, there's not a lot of room. Hands cramping. If your hand's not cramping, you're probably not pressing hard enough where you need to, unless you're using charcoal. Make sure you are filling these areas in thoroughly. If you miss a spot that's supposed to be in complete darkness, it's going to throw off that illusion. So make sure you are filling the space fully, as much as it can be a pain in some of those little areas. It's worth it. Oh, super cramped. If your pencil's getting so dull that you're having a hard time staying inside these little shapes, definitely stop and sharpen it. I have handheld sharpeners or the electric sharpeners. But working with a tool that's not properly prepared is a pain in the butt. So, and actually I sharpened this too much and it's breaking.